Shikues e nderuar, mirëmbrëma. Këtu jemi në ndërtesën e qeverisë Kosovës bashkë me Borisllav Stefanoviq, udhëheqësin e ekipit negociator në Serbi. Mr. Stefanoviq, tell me, how was your impression of the reception you got here?
Well, it was really positive. We had a working atmosphere and really constructive atmosphere during our meetings. We had a chance to express our views on the topics that we are discussing inside of the dialogue, as you know, in Brussels. So the whole idea was to come here or any other place and to have a chance to exchange views, to perspectives about resolving concrete problems in Kosovo in a way that is a normal thing. And I'm sure that after this ice-breaking, we will continue to have meetings in many places, and we will be allowed to express our views and suggestions how to resolve concrete problems.
What about the reception outside?
Well, the reception outside was, to be honest, a surprise, because no one really expected that emotions can go that high. But concerning all the difficulties that exist inside of political spectrum in Kosovo, I think it's understandable, and especially knowing the traumas that we all draw from the past. I, of course, was not happy to see these things, but in the same time, it had no influence on our meetings.
You understand the people that were protesting outside. How can it be a surprise to you? They are our age, basically 20, 30, and they lived through, basically they were kids when they became refugees, and they lived through 10 years of first being deprived of a normal life as Kosovo Albanians by Milosevic regime, but in the last 10 years, they've been internationally, these youths have been internationally blocked by not military means of the Milosevic time, but diplomatic means of your government. Do you understand?
Well, I do understand that some people have that perspective, and I think that people can express their views in a democratic, peaceful way. But what we have witnessed today is far away from that, and there is no excuse for making
your
damage.
Government doesn't have a very peaceful tradition in this.
Well, we all have, as you know, we all have different traditions on both sides. Not all of them are positive. I can agree with you 100%. But at the same time, I think it's not helpful to wreck cars or to to use violence in any way, or to all of us to swallow tear gas in a situation that is absolutely normal.
It's not helpful that among those could be a tennis player that 20 years ago, for example, a prospective tennis player couldn't enter competitions because 10 years first was stopped by Milosevic, but now for the last 10 years cannot play in games, international games, because of the policies that your government continues to have, obstructions.
I think that our policy is not to strangle Kosovo in any way. We are only trying to stop the perception about Kosovo as a state. These are two different things, and that's why this dialogue is so important, among other things.
It's not only perception,
because
we have to talk about, exactly, a tennis player cannot enter an international competition because you don't allow even a tennis club to become part of it.
I think we all have the same guy who represents this country, which is Novak Djokovic. He's doing a great job.
What do you mean we all have?
We all have in this country.
Serbia has,
well,
not
yeah.
Kosovo.
Well, that's our difference, you see.
So Kosovo should not play tennis?
No, I didn't say that. I'm saying that basically when somebody took some unilateral steps, it was, of course, bad perceived by us, but not only by us. And of course, that's why we have a dispute. And that's why we have this dialogue, to try to put the normal life back in track instead of clinging to our differences all the time. And I think that's a fair message and a sincere one. If we go back to our differences all the time, if we go back to our trenches and you know it's so easy. You mentioned a young tennis player that is not allowed to play tennis. I can mention you many people who are expelled from their homes from Kosovo, many of them in refugee camps right now in inner Serbian soil. And they can be also outside some other building making riots about their ill fate.
But nobody stops them play tennis here or in Kosovo. They can be
sure
part of
exactly.
clubs, and there's Kosovo was declared independent with the international community support. You took it to international court and you tried to argue the case it was unilateral. You lost that case. You did not respect the international decision of that court.
I disagree with that strongly, because that's
Did you
absolutely
accept it?
your side of the story. As you know, it doesn't coincide with reality in full. I think that when you say international community recognize Kosovo, it's not true.
I'm not
it's
saying
also not
international
true
community recognized
that we
but
disputed
that
the case.
Decided.
We disputed the right to declare independence, but the court decided to discuss the paper, which was the court's decision, and that's why we had a resolution in the General Assembly that actually allowed us to have this dialogue. That was the whole point.
If you really want to
go back
break
to the table, and
if you
I'm
really
happy
want
that
to
we have
break,
it now.
if you really want to break with the past policy, with the policy of the past, and if you really want to make a total change in the way that Balkans do politics, do you think it's decent to start by learning actually how to say, to apologize to Kosovo Albanians about what happened in the past? Could you see your leadership being ready to start off a process of apology, and then we continue to have a really new breaking with the past policy?
I think that it's necessary that people start apologizing to each other everywhere. It's not only about Kosovo. As you know, Serbia was, our government was doing a lot, and our president, in these reconciliation efforts in the region. And I think it is not only a trendsetter in the region, but it's actually the new view, the new policy of not only new Serbia, but of the new region. If we start our communication after so many bad things in the past by demands and by yet again using trenches in our communication, I'm not sure that we can get too far away. That's why this dialogue is great, because it actually allows us to put our differences, and the main one is the status,
but can you
aside,
start first then?
And
you
to
say
start,
that everybody must apologize.
Well, listen,
can you start first?
Your team quite often use the argument that is following. I don't want to talk about it because it's a political issue. Now you tell me, what is technical in apology? If there is something technical,
I don't know what my team is doing, because it's not transparent. I'm actually wanting, you are here, you are in Pristina, we are two people talking to each other, and I'm asking you, can we start with an apology? Basically, is it possible, can you see your leadership making that step? Is it possible we will get a leadership in Belgrade that might, at what point, might apologize for what happened here? And what happened, when I say what happened, I'm not saying just the Albanian record of what happened. The Humanitarian Law Center, based in Belgrade, run by Nataša Kandić, has said 13,000 people have died, out of this 10% have been Serbs, so majority Albanians. So if you're going to take the majority of the blame, can you start doing that?
Well, for the start, we should avoid body count. That's for one thing. For number two thing is that there are so many things that we need to do in the reconciliation system and the process. Basically, it's a really painful path.
It's painful. That's what I'm saying.
It's complicated. It's complicated. We should all study together. We're about to, as you know, emerging into this process meant also for us the start of historic reconciliation between Serbs and Albanians. Now, if we start, I agree with you. If we start picking,
are you emerging into this process out of really honest attempts for reconciliation, or because your self-concentrated, self-centered needs to enter the European Union? You must do this because you need to enter the European Union soon.
I wish it was that easy and simple. And I know that the perception exists in Pristina, that this is all about Serbia getting candidacy, but it's not.
Why is it happening this year when you're about to get candidacy? Why didn't it happen 3 years ago?
Well, listen, it has nothing to do with it, because as you know, if you've been following our politics in Belgrade, you know that for us, strategic goal was always, since 2007, to bring Pristina back to negotiating table. That's why we got this chance, and we're happy with it. And it's not about getting candidacy. Candidacy is a completely separated process. That's how we see it.
The talks are happening in Brussels. And of course, neighborly relations are one of the conditions you must fulfill.
I agree, but we are not neighbors.
Of course we are neighbors.
That's what you say.
Then what are we?
We are people who live together, and we should live together, and we will continue to live together, yes.
I can't even cross to your country because of the papers you don't recognize. You block our everything we produce to go to your country. You block our cars. Our planes cannot go through you, and we live in the same place.
My think
I mean, you have a strange ideas of people living together. Is this what you do
no.
at home with the people you live together?
Well, if you allow me to say, I'm the wrong address for this, because I'm the person who actually gave some really good concrete proposals that would allow people to finally start doing what is normal. Now,
Let's start to talk about those proposals.
Listen, I cannot go too deep into this, because it wouldn't be correct and appropriate concerning your negotiating team. But I can tell you that we are all on the same task, resolving concrete problems. Some of those problems you just mentioned. And believe me that our side was really constructive and following European standards, also concerning the freedom of movement. So, is it up to us? Yes, but only partly. So if it's up to us, we have already delivered a lot concerning the proposals. And the problem about the process of negotiation is that it always has to have certain detachment from the public. But when we have agreement on some things, and I'm really optimistic that we will soon have some concrete results, then your public and our public will have a chance to judge and to give certain marks about whether we were successful or not. And I can tell you from my own perspective, not only as the head of negotiating team, but as a person who is built on European values, that these proposals coming from Belgrade should be highly acceptable for anyone that lives in Kosovo and Metohija.
Can you tell me then, what do you want out of the dialogue? What do you want for Serbia?
We want to several things. First, we want to create normal atmosphere in which people live in Kosovo and Metohija, especially the Serbian community. We want to resolve concrete problems that exist and that can only be resolved by our joint action, meaning us and Pristina. We also want to create a situation in which we can finally regulate relationship between Belgrade and Pristina. And also it means that the whole region will finally find its peace and safe passage to European Union. All of these things can be done through a series of small steps. Some of those steps are license plates, some of those steps are electricity, some of those steps are civil registry or cadastre, but we have to be successful soon, because this is what people need. People don't want us to talk about big stories and big topics and to continue shooting to each other from political trenches. They need to see concrete results. That's exactly what we've been doing.
But people also don't trust you on this. People don't trust that when you talk about practical issues, you're actually going to leave aside territorial issues. If issues of practical issues clash with the policies of territory that Serbia has had so far, what are you going to do? What is more important for you? Resolving practical issue or keeping a territory?
Well, that's the whole point. Our two respective views toward the status of Kosovo are, as you know, totally opposite. But those views should not be an obstacle for resolving concrete problems. This is our initial position. We have really constructive, creative interlocutors on the side of Pristina. I have to say this, that we are really happy with the atmosphere, constructivity and understanding that we receive from Madam Tahiri and the rest of her team. I have to say this, and of course this visit was yet another chance to go through all of these topics and to try to eradicate obstacles.
Why are you not resolving issues in Brussels but coming over here?
Because there are so many things that we need to do in order to finally have a breakthrough. Not to wait every month to meet in Brussels in a closed office. You know, simply it's normal to meet and to discuss all of these things. Our differences exist, especially on the status. But just the fact that we agreed to talk about concrete, practical issues shows that Belgrade is ready to resolve these problems without, let me finish, without putting the status between us. Now, we are not the ones who are insisting on the differences on the status. Unfortunately, this is what Pristina has been doing. We are the wrong address for this criticism. We are actually trying only to resolve concrete problems. I'm not pushing my view on the status in this dialogue.
But are you saying Pristina is opening status in these talks?
No, they are looking everything through the exclusive prism of their view toward the status. That's the only way they want to discuss it. I don't want to discuss our differences.
Explain to me a very concrete example. How are they pushing, for example,
if we talk about license plates, for me, a license plate is a problem that burdens people. I want to resolve it. I have concrete proposals for it.
But so does Pristina.
Yes,
And
but
yes?
there has to be things that actually confirm your view of the status, that actually Kosovo
Not
is
our view.
independent.
We have some plates. You want us to do different plates for Serbia. You want us to have different
Not
stamps
for
for Serbia,
Not
right?
for Serbia. Not for Serbia.
For who?
But I don't want to go into details. I'm telling you that the status
We can
differences...
go, with our car plates, we can go to Montenegro, we can go to Macedonia, we can go to Croatia, and you want us to change the look of our plates only because of Serbia.
No, actually, you don't have to change the look of your plates, but there are other solutions that would allow you to obtain your plates, but simply not to use it on the rest of the Serbian territory.
I'm sure. Then tell me approximately how could it be?
I already told you too much.
Okay. What else would you, or basically, what other topics did you come here to open with our leadership?
I didn't come to open topics. I came simply to discuss obstacles that we have inside of the things that we opened in Brussels. For example, there are problems inside of the issue of cadastre, of the civil registry, of the customs stamp. There are problems in the issue of the freedom of movement. There are not too many obstacles, I have to be honest. But those things need to be discussed on many occasions, not simply seeing each other in Brussels. That's why this was a good opportunity for me, and I'm sure for my interlocutors here in Pristina. It was a really useful, constructive discussion on our joint task to resolve problems and to go as soon as we can to European Union.
You are entering, basically, tell me about how you're going to resolve issues that now continue to be far more difficult in the phase that negotiations will be in a few months. Issues to do with customs and the north of Kosovo. Considering that in the north of Kosovo you are supporting basically what looks like not only to us from the south of Kosovo, but generally it is quite a lawless and lawless place. Basically, it's a place where EULEX cannot have its own, cannot do its job properly. People drive around without car plates. It's an atmosphere of a little bit where organized crime rules, and you seem to be supporting that atmosphere. Your government seems to be supporting that atmosphere.
We are supporting Serbian community everywhere, as you know. We're not supporting any lawless atmosphere, because I disagree that the north of Kosovo has exclusivity on lawlessness in Kosovo and Metohija. So basically I disagree on that view, because if you go to Mitrovica and you talk to them, they will tell you the same thing but in the opposite view. They will tell you all of these things about the territory south of Ibar River.
They will also tell you that they are really quite scared of a few criminal gangs that run that place. And I can confirm this by not what I'm saying, but there's International Crisis Group report said some several million euros are being believed to go to the MUP every year by your government. And some 200 of them are hard MUP who presumably organize violent protests, recruit thugs, and commit arson and bomb attacks. Their salaries and expenses go up to 1 million or less. This is International Crisis Group saying. You are supporting people who are creating a really threatening atmosphere for your own people, not just for Albanians.
So you're saying all of these things after such a day that we had?
What a day, yes.
What you just described is pretty much what we had today here in Pristina.
You had a protest from young people who, for 20 years, some of them, the leading member of them, has been in jail by your government, as you know, for political reasons.
We are not against any protests, as you know.
He was an organized criminal.
I'm not against any protests. You understand, we are not against, it's a democratic right. But to use violence, that's something that we should all condemn.
But violence is something until recently was...
What are our differences with Mr. Kurti? I really wanted to talk with him about our differences. I also wanted to give him our perspective of the dialogue with Pristina. I wanted to give him information about our dialogue with Pristina. I think it would be really useful for him. But unfortunately, he didn't want to see me. Instead of that, we witnessed these unwanted scenes today in front of the government building.
What sort of issues would you want to discuss with Mr. Kurti exactly?
Well, I would sit in a chair and allow him to ask me a question, which is a big question. What's going on in Brussels? I'm sure that he's interested in that.
What is going on in Brussels?
I just explained to you. and to your viewers.
What are conditions under which Serbia, could recognize Kosovo?
I think that's a question that so many people asked. And I can tell you right now and to your viewers that let us try to resolve many problems that we have between us. There are so many problems. And Serbia cannot and will not recognize unilaterally declared independence of Kosovo.
But in Serbian media, you have stated that you are also open to discussing the idea of partition.
It means that I'm open to discuss any topic.
Any topic. Can we go on a little bit, just explore this idea? Yes. Where do we go with this? Let's just explore the possibility of this idea.
Like hypothetically.
Where do we go with this hypothetically? If you want the north, Kosovo would want the south of Serbia. But if it's a meter square per kilometer square per kilometer square, are you ready to give up? The north of Kosovo from Ibar River is 1,000 kilometers square. Are you ready to give up 1,000 kilometers square of the south of Serbia?
I don't think that you and I are entitled, even with highly hypothetical point of view, to discuss square meters of the possible exchange of territories.
Yes, but why are you then, if you are not the person, as you're saying, ready to discuss this, why are you opening and letting this issue into the public at all, the issue of division? Do you realize what it opens? It opens the issue then of Albanians in Macedonia, of Serbs in Bosnia. It's a Pandora's box for the entire region. Why are you, as an advanced country that you claim to be, opening into the public some discussion about such an old 19th century and regressive idea of ethnic states, such as the idea of partition?
Forgive me for saying this, but what you just said really reminds me of things that we used to say in Belgrade so many times before.
But you are the one who, in Serbian media, are quoted to say that everything is up for discussion, even partition. Partition is just one of the things to discuss.
No, I didn't say even partition. I said all the topics are for discussion if we agree to talk about solution, one of the possible solutions like partition. We are ready to talk about it. To talk about something, as you know, is different than accepting something, and it's different than implementing something. And of course, we all want the same thing, which is a peaceful, prosperous EU region. So this is what we want here. We all want the same thing. That's why we are doing this process, because Europeans are helping us to find solution for concrete problems.
You are doing this process,
just for a second.
exactly what you say, because you want to enter the EU, not because you want to make life easier for Albanians.
No,
because otherwise, why would you stop Albanians travel in your country for the last 10 years? You could have said, I give you a piece of paper that said, I don't recognize Kosovo, but let them travel. You wanted to make life difficult for Albanians in the last 10 years and stop them traveling. You didn't need EU to come and do this dialogue. It's a simple thing.
It's not true.
To let people travel.
It's not true. You well know. You are really aware of the fact that we almost had a semi-war situation after 2007. And the situation was not normal in any way after the conflict, since 1999. There were so many bad things happening on both sides.
For which you came to us and threw us out of our homes. It's not like we came to Belgrade to expel them.
From your home.
Your government, excuse me, the policy of your government, the military of your government came to Kosovo to expel people. It's not like Albanians came to Belgrade to expel the Serbs.
Well, nobody can eradicate the fact that it was happening in many ways, that many people were expelled from their homes, as you know, from both sides, and that there are so many bad things.
Out of 90%.
You know, it sounds like ex-Croatian President Mesic. He used the same argument. We didn't go to Zemun or to Belgrade to expel people from their homes, but it doesn't.
He's right.
But it doesn't erase the fact that many people were pushed out of their homes or murdered in a brutal way.
It's true.
Only because of their ethnicity. That many churches were burned here in Kosovo and Metohija without any reason,
Mr. Stefanoviq, even in Second World War, the Allies,
we can go on and on.
even the Allies killed Germans, but the Germans were the ones who built, in the end, apologized and started making a new break and build the cemeteries of the Jews that were killed. It's the Germans who took the lead in reconciliation, despite the fact that the Brits and Americans killed people too.
Are you sure that it was Germans and not the Nazis?
But it's the Germans who began reconciling. And you, as a new Serbia, are you ready? I'm just looking at why are you so different?
We have already started the process of reconciliation. You know that.
How?
We have already started everywhere in the region. The fact that we're talking now with Pristina is also part of a bigger reconciliation.
You think in 21st century we should have such low expectations of each other that talking is a great thing that we're doing?
Well, we didn't talk for many years, and we have tried, Serbs and Albanians have tried pretty much everything except the peace.
You didn't talk for many years.
We didn't talk. Listen, when somebody gets off the table and goes out and proclaims independence, how would you call that?
In coordination, after giving so much concessions to the Serbs, after going with decentralization and giving lots of local powers, after giving so much land to your monasteries, actually full autonomy to the monasteries, after all of this, it wasn't declared in '99. Several years were waited for a lot of concessions to be created to the Serb community, much more than you are creating to Albanian community in Serbia. Wouldn't you say?
No.
Why not?
Because I strongly disagree. You said so many things. After all, if the purpose was, and if I remember your explanations for the UDI, that it's the only possible thing after such a heinous crimes happened in conflict, why didn't you do it in '99? And you said it yourself. No, because there was absolutely no view or guarantee that Kosovo can ever be independent. You were fighting your battle. You persuade many countries in the world to recognize you.
You didn't want Kosovo. You didn't want the Kosovar people. I agree with you. Not a lot of countries have recognized us, but
maybe not too many.
Serbia as well. When Serbia was declared independence, let's go back to your history. You gained local autonomy 1817, autonomy with Russian protection in 1830. Formal sovereignty in 1878. So it was about 70 years before, as well, everybody recognized you. So countries slowly become independent. It's not like they happen immediately. They are recognized by everybody. Serbia, too, became a country gradually and was recognized gradually. So Kosovo will be the same.
Since you are really well with history, although you made two material mistakes, I have to tell you that no one recognized us in a way that we sent, for example, King Milan Obrenović to run around Caribbean islands to give some money so they can recognize him. No.
It's a new century, new methods.
No, it's not because of the new century.
Doesn't matter.
I will explain. It's
because
it's because international law is built on certain decisions and congresses. You cannot do things in a way that you go around and ask countries to recognize you, and then to make comparison with Serbia in 1878 that was recognized.
International law decided. It was international court that decided. It's not up to you or me. You took it to court. You took it to court to challenge our independence, and you lost. Can't you just not live in denial, accept this? 8%, the latest data from your marketing research in Belgrade showed that only 8% of the public in Serbia cares about Kosovo. 70% care about keeping their job as the most important thing. So if 8% care, don't you think that it's just this issue of Kosovo and obstructing it is the issue of a few of the elite politicians who want to be play with this issue internationally?
No, because I read many of the polling that's been done in Belgrade, and I can tell you that people are enumerating Kosovo as a problem because of two reasons. Of course, there are burdening things like economic situation, bad social situation. I agree with you.
And you're still sending your budget to pay the people in Kosovo with this economic situation.
I will answer that. And of course, it means that people are also satisfied with what the government's been doing with Kosovo. And we've been checking as well. how people react, and that's why they react. Every time we have an incident in Kosovo, like we had today, when a couple was attacked in their house near Prizren, then we have this scale jumping up. And it's not, you know, I heard today with Mr. Kuchi during this meeting one interesting sentence. Leadership is about leading and vision, not about following trends or polling. Of course, people will always say it's more important, just to say this, it's much more important to have a job.
Yeah.
No one should ask people things like, would you prefer to have a job or to keep Kosovo? Or to have a normal life and a salary, or to keep Kosovo? That's not a question. Nobody's asking this question. But
it's an indication. It's an indication how much your people care about Kosovo. They have understood that it is a lost war. You lost the war, admit it.
Well,
and let's go ahead with it.
It's not true. I don't want to look at it this way, because you said something that is really interesting. We didn't lose case in front of the ICJ, International Court of Justice. No, because the question, just to explain.
You didn't win.
Well, no, I think that you didn't win. And let me explain why. The answer that we both expected didn't happen. You expected that there will be...
actually, it was better than we expected.
Just to explain.
It was quite favorable.
If you read the ruling of the court, you could have seen that basically the court says that a piece of paper brought by the group of people that gathered in some room is not against international law.
Exactly.
And we asked whether you had a right to proclaim independence. Having the right or having a piece of paper are two separate things. But
we were right,
even if you
whether
were right,
it was a group of people or whoever, we were right to declare independence, and let's move on from that.
Even if you were right, and you're not, I'm sure that now we would talk about 160 countries that have recognized Kosovo.
No, not everybody recognizes immediately. Not everybody recognizes immediately.
So what stops them?
Slowly, people will recognize.
You think we're so powerful that we can stop them? Or there is something problematic about the whole thing?
Of course there's something problematic.
What is problematic?
And one of the problems is why are you trying to...
If you are independent democratic state, what is the problem?
Let's talk about solutions in which they were used in the world, like two Germanys, which Mr. Tadji talked about in the last interview here in Kosovo, where basically both West and East Germany normalized relations, and they were open the way for both of them to become members of the UN by continuing not to recognize each other. Can this be possible? We continue not to recognize each other, but you don't block us from having normal life, like entering football championships and things like that?
I think that's a really interesting concept and a great idea that we should explore it. But the problem, Jeta, is that unfortunately, I have to say this, we don't have interlocutors for this. Every time we want to, I will explain. Every time we want to talk about, some people would call it bigger things in regulating our relationship. We don't have an interlocutor.
Tell me, what are the bigger things?
Well, for example, for the start, let us avoid unnecessary cornering ourselves in this framework of whether we talk about political or technical issues.
Let's avoid that. What are bigger things?
Maybe your team should avoid that as well, because if everything is technical, except something that don't plays well for us that is political, then something might be political
because
for me.
Political means, because they are scared, and most of the public is scared.
What is not political about license plates? What is not political about ID cards? Are you telling me it's not political?
Then
what is not political? What is
this
so
doesn't
political
really
about the North?
how it's called.
Why the North is so political and ID cards are not?
What do you want then with the North? What do you want to do with the North? Do you want to run the North? Is that what you want?
I think that people that live in the North should run the North. And we should finally... Jeta, we should finally start talking about it.
They can do that through decentralization. They can do that through decentralization. Run the North through decentralization.
Okay, it's an interesting idea. Yeah. I think it can be a starting point. But please, give us somebody to talk about it.
You think Edita Tahiri is not the person to talk about this?
No, she's a great person. But for Pristina, the North is non-existent. They don't want to talk about it. It's a political issue. I want to talk about it. because there are things in the north that can be resolved from our perspective only by resolving the north as a whole.
But do you want the territory as a whole? Is that how you want to discuss it? To keep the territory within Serbia? Or do you want to discuss it as an issue to be resolved within Kosovo?
Well, you know our differences. Because if we go into this argumentation...
You know our differences too.
Yes, so I'm intentionally avoiding
So
to push out our state position, which is practically that we can say that the status is resolved and there is no territory dispute because you are inside of our territory.
Then you can see why European Union... But that's why they insisted on technical, because they thought you might resolve other issues and not talk about something so clashing.
So I don't have that boundaries in my mandate. I can talk about anything. Practically, I can talk about technical, practical, everyday life or political issues. Why it's a problem to talk about?
Fine, you came and saw a very political person today. You saw Mr. Kusi.
Yes.
Did you open these up to him as issues that bother you and you want to talk about political issues with him?
No,
directly?
we talked. Well, first of all, meeting with Mr. Kusi was really constructive. We exchanged,
what does it mean? I mean, we hear these words in public, constructive.
Yes.
Explain to us a bit more.
It's a nice word used by politicians.
Yes, so...
And it means in practical that we exchanged ideas about the nature of the process and that we need to try to resolve so many still open problems that exist in order to get maybe to bigger problems. So I had a chance to represent our view not only on the concrete problems but also on the perspective of the process. And I have to tell you that it was really refreshing to talk about things beyond, you know, certain frameworks and agendas and to really to have visionary approach to this problem. Many, many things.
Did you talk about...
But we didn't talk about, let me put it this way, my intention was never to try to spoil the perception of the status that you have. Or you would call it status, as you see it. That's not my intention. I didn't come here to persuade anybody that your perception is bad. We know it's bad, but you don't know it. So why bothering...
Perception. We are an independent country recognized by 70 countries. As much as whether you like it or not, 70 is better than 0.
I understand that.
I know it's not as good as 100 and it's so...
70 is not good as 80, but maybe if Vanuatu didn't recognize you, you would be in a better position or a worse position. Maybe if you have 80, you would be in a better position. How about that? Maybe if you obtain 90, you would be more independent. What I'm trying to say, Jeta,
what is amazing for me is that you want to continue obstructing for your continuation of obstructing of our new country. You are willing to go to continue doing it, even if it means that lives of really young people will be limited.
I strongly disagree with you.
They will be limited.
No, yes.
Trust me, we cannot...
Let me explain.
Sportists, artists, and many people are having a problem because of status, because you are blocking us in international organizations.
Kosovo are having problems because of their ethnicity as well. But I'm not pushing this. What I'm trying to explain to you is exactly that's why we have this dialogue, because we want to resolve this situation that you mentioned. It's not normal that people who live in Kosovo are, not allowed to have normal lives.
So let's say we've got to get creative about the norm.
Why are you criticizing us without actually seeing some results from this dialogue? Let us show you some results.
Because there's no deal yet. There's no deal yet.
Maybe you should also ask your negotiating team why we don't have this great deal. I'm ready to have it, as I said publicly. I'm ready to talk about everything. And actually, you should know.
Why
We're the ones that
everything?
gave concrete proposals.
Are you saying
on
that
every topic, concrete proposals, at least 2 or maybe 3 of them.
But you're getting to a point that in order to let go on these specific concrete problems, you are actually realizing that you might have to decide on a bigger issue. That's why you came to Kosovo.
No. I read an article in your daily, I think it's Express or something like that. They were trying to show how Borisllav Stefanoviq is contradictory. He wants to defend constitution, but he's ready to break constitution of Serbia by talking about partition. What a great analysis. You know, let me tell you.
But tell me, are you ready to, you're ready to talk about partition? That's what you said. And
I'm ready to talk about anything that me and Edita or your negotiating team agree to talk about. What's wrong with that?
No,
it's
no,
in the nature of democratic process.
Partition is something else that they are not ready to talk about,
I
and
understand
you
that.
are. So, if partition is not a solution for the North, if that is not a solution, what would be your creative alternative?
I think
for the North?
you're on a good path by saying some things that could lead us to regulation of our relationship, which means to see what happens with us in the future, how we will live together, and what it means concerning European integrations, you know, of both of our entities. I'll give you an example. If we regulate our relationship, it will happen after we resolve some of these so-called small things, which means that people could move and travel, people can use their documents, people can pay electricity and use their cell phones without any boundaries, 1 second. Mm-hmm. And it would also mean that people who are of different ethnicity, not only Albanians, would have a secure and normal life without fear all the time. Now, we also have something like 200 and something thousand IDPs who live in inner Serbian soil who are not allowed to go back. We have property issues.
Yeah, Albanians are not allowed to go back in the north, by the way. I wish you remember this too.
Okay, listen, let's talk about
Let's talk about them too.
Let's talk about war crimes. Let's talk about
yeah,
missing
let's talk
persons.
about missing persons.
Let's talk about cultural and religious heritage, for example. And I'm glad
we
that
have
for the
been
first
talking
time,
about them. Our
despite,
public
listen,
has been throughout the Sorry Plan talking about them a lot in the last 4 years, believe me.
Okay, I'm not questioning that. I'm
Yeah.
just saying that it's good that we finally have opportunity to open all of these issues. And we are not opening these issues from a position that we want to win over somebody or to take over something or to say that Serbia is dragging the process because we need a candidacy.
Yes, but by opening partition, you are also opening something, you're also just confirming that the Serbian elite and academia is actually supportive of this idea. It was not only the sick mind of Milosevic who was pushing this, but it's also a policy of yours you are considering. And this is very regressive. This is very damaging for the rest of the region.
You know, there are many things that your government did were also highly damaging for everybody in the region, not only to us. But I don't want to go into this.
But you started. That's what I wanted to say.
Who started first what? We should go back
Come on,
centuries.
in the history of, not in history of your and my memory.
History. Listen,
of our memory, of our lives, it has been, the beginning was with Milosevic.
We in Belgrade used to be in this set of mind and in this way of thinking. And guess where it led us? My friendly advice, adapt to new circumstances. This is
my friendly advice to you too, adapt to new circumstances. We are a country.
I have
adapt,
adapted
Mr.
enormously, Jeta. We have changed our paradigm, we have changed our tactics. We learned many things from you. So what's the problem in me saying I'm ready to talk about many things? I'm not trying to do anything subversive. I'm actually saying let us talk. What's the problem? Why nervous reactions here? Now,
why? Are you surprised?
Yes.
Do you understand a very brief history? I'm not saying things happen in a context. I'm not saying very long history.
If you said that we
liberated
ourselves in 1817 and that Milosevic was pushing for partition, you should check your history.
He was pushing for the idea of Serbs being defended everywhere. Serbs everywhere being defended. And that's how we came to Kosovo. So, I mean, are you coming to Kosovo 10 years later, remember?
Policies of defending somebody.
Yeah, but that's
actually what you are doing right now. And you should check the reality.
No, we're not coming to Serbia to defend Albanians of Preševo.
Of course
we're not saying that.
Of course not, because you are in Serbia.
We are in Kosovo, Mr. Stefanoviq. Final question for you would be, even if you make agreement on whatever agreement you make, how can you be trusted to actually implement that agreement if after the ICJ ruling you didn't change much of your policy and you didn't use that opportunity to make a break and actually look ahead?
Do what? Recognize Kosovo?
Allow Kosovo?
Do what?
Maybe that's too much to ask from the mood you have. Allow tennis players. to go ahead. Allow the youth to go ahead and travel.
Maybe we can finally find somebody who can match Djokovic from Pristina.
Not if you, for 20 years, have made sure you have oppressed those tennis players not to go anywhere. Not if you made sure
I didn't know
for
that
10
we have
years,
oppressed tennis players.
You have oppressed the youth that have not even been able to go to school.
You know what
the public, please, Mr. Stefanoviq, I'm sorry, but I don't know how much you know that throughout the 90s, it's not about just coming down to Milosevic killing people, but throughout the 90s, you had a system, a segregated system where people were not allowed even to go to public schools here. Albanians. You understand that it was a whole education
we all know history.
generation.
Listen, we all know history. I
this
don't need
is
another
very
lesson.
fresh.
Listen.
This is my history.
Okay.
That's why I'm talking to you. This is my history. I didn't go to the official school because I wasn't allowed by Milosevic. This is a very fresh thing, and I'm your age.
Listen, I understand. We all know that many mistakes were done. I'm not ashamed to say it. My president, my prime minister, never killed anyone. You understand? But never. Not only them, but the leaders of all the parties never
because we had NATO here.
No.
But diplomatically, your leader stopped me being a part of other international organizations.
My leader.
The leader, your boss, is stopping Kosovo enter the international organizations. Yes.
No. What is preventing Kosovo to join international organizations is the necessity in Pristina to show in all and every places that you are independent state. This is what prevents you. I understand the problem with tennis players. I don't know how we ended up talking about this, but I think there are much bigger problems in Kosovo. Much bigger problems.
I agree.
You know this well because you opened some of these topics in your TV show, which I'm familiar with. Let's start.
I did. So we are responsible dealing with our own public about issues of the past. So so we are acting like a new independent country.
Great.
No matter how difficult they are, we are talking about
That's good. And it's healthy for any society. Like reconciliation is healthy. But coming here in my car, I noticed that there are too many poor people. That people are working for 70 euros per month. That you have too many autolarie everywhere. Most of them are not working now. That villages are emptying. That infrastructure is ruined. And there are no jobs. Whether you're Serb or Albanian. Now, let me finish.
Agree. You know, part of it that would help our trade is please don't block the few factories that are producing products in Kosovo.
Yes.
They could export if you allow them to. If you do not block them through CEFTA and through other
we were never against Kosovo having the right. Listen.
Come on.
No.
Formality is that our cars cannot go through Serbia. Our plates, I cannot go like you and see Serbia. I cannot go with my car, drive and see your autolarie and see maybe your country.
Absolutely, because you are welcome in your own country. But let me
I'm
finish.
not, because I cannot cross the border to you, because you don't let me cross the border.
That's why we have this dialogue. Give us a chance to show you some concrete results. That's why I came here, among other things. Believe me, honestly, I'm saying. I came here to talk to your public, because people here should see that we are not devils, that we are not trying to deceive anybody all the time, that this is not about tricking anybody, that we have some good concrete proposals that will help normal, everyday life people to have normal lives.
Just one more sentence. When will you decide about this? When are we going to have this new approach, see reality? We are at the state we don't...
Jeta, when I come next time to Pristina, or you come to Belgrade, listen, and we will have some concrete results. Okay, sure, you're welcome. And there will be no rallies, believe me. So when you come to Belgrade next time...
There were no rallies when you came as a private person last time. There are now when you came
I came to Kosovo many times.
But so you didn't experience this?
No.
This that you experienced.
And I'm sorry that these things happened, honestly. I think it's not, it's not about me. It's about some other things in your political arena, and you know it.
But it's also about the political arena that your government pushed in the last 20 years.
I'm sorry that
there are very young people that remember basically what has happened.
People should get jobs.
You should understand and not be surprised.
People should get jobs and perspective. without jobs and perspective, we will have
Let us
extremism.
breathe. Don't isolate us then.
Listen, if you tell me that you don't have factories in Podujevo, that you don't have good roads, because we are preventing
I'm not saying,
you to play tennis
but you
and
are,
things like that.
no, you are one element,
sure.
you are one element that is helping basically
Let me
this
give you-
isolation.
let me
We
tell you-
need to
let me
feel
tell you
less
one-
isolated.
Let me
that
tell
make
you
us
one
feel.
anecdote, if you allow me. So when you say something like, I'm not allowed to travel because of your government's policy that prevents us and things like that, maybe we should turn it around and say, why do our government insist that we have these maps and RKS on license plates? Why do we insist on the symbols of sovereignty all the time?
Because why not?
Because why? So you see,
You haven't been around for 10 years. Come on, it's not like it's new. You haven't been running this place for 10 years.
Yes, well,
So I want to come on Monday to Serbia.
at least
Can
some
I come on
parts
Monday
of
with
it
these
were not run by us.
parts with
Some
these
parts. But listen,
plates?
I will give you one anecdote. While I was
I want to
in-
come on Monday to Belgrade. Come on. You going to make it possible for me?
Absolutely.
How? With these plates, with these car
By
plates?
miracle called democratic procedure.
There is a democratic procedure in which I can come to Belgrade,
In
right?
our part of Serbia, there is.
Thank
Now,
you very much.
let me tell you one thing. When I was in U.S. Congress, I was trying to, fight some political battles against your project. And of course, it was really challenging for all of us, despite our differences. And I remember during one of the hearings in U.S. Congress, some promoters of independence of Kosovo organized some business people from Pristina to go to Washington to testify about the business climate in Kosovo. And I remember all they did was saying all the time, once that we are independent, things will bloom and we will get all the best things for investors.
But it's not like you,
Just
if
one
we were
second,
part of
that
Serbia,
we
we wouldn't have a blooming economy. Come
Listen.
on, you were not interested in us as people and in our economy. You were interested in our territory. You did not show willingness to develop us economically.
Now that you are allegedly having your own territory, how come that you are not blooming?
But I agree with you, there's lots of problems. It's not like we're not saying that there are problems.
Is it because of us? Tell me honestly.
But it's partly because of you.
Why?
It's partly because of you.
Why?
Because throughout your 20 years...
Where are your American investors?
Because you have made sure that the people who would be educated to be managers of tomorrow for 10 years were going in parallel house schools, not in normal schools. For 10 years, Milosevic has made sure the education system here has been regressed so much that we are still suffering from lacking the people who would be managing and running the business of this country. So partly, I'm sorry, Mr. Stefanovic, you have to realize this, partly it is because of you. Of course, I'm not suggesting it is only because of you. But the moral of the story is you didn't want it.
You mean like Serbs?
The Serbian government, because of the policies of the Serbian government.
We
you are
had-
inheritors of a Serbian government.
You know that we had a
Different
democratic
change.
detachment from those times. You know that. And also you know...
But I cannot see diplomatically you're obstructing Kosovo, just not militarily, because you can't do it militarily. We have a different setup now.
Of course not.
But diplomatically, you're doing your best to obstruct it.
We are obstructing promotion of an idea that is illegal and that is one-sided. What we are trying to do,
That's not
Jeta, to
what
be
the
honest with
International
you,
Court said.
No.
Okay.
To be honest, we want to bring you to the negotiating table. That's all we want, from scratch, from the day one. And now,
To negotiate what?
To negotiating table.
To negotiate what?
To negotiate our relationship. What's wrong with that?
Well, Brussels brought us to the table. You didn't quite. Brussels
Brussels?
brought you and us to the table.
Oh, okay. So how come that the authors of the resolution in the General Assembly are, guess who? Us and Brussels. Why didn't you vote in the General Assembly for this resolution? I'm sure that you would.
We are not a member.
How come you're not a member?
It doesn't matter. What are you trying to say? It doesn't
I'm
matter.
trying to-
We are a very young country, not recognized by everybody in the world. I admit it to you. We are not. And I'm asking you, you're going to be neighbors with us forever. Come on, you're going to be neighbors with us forever. Are you forever going to play this inat and block us and continue to obstruct us within the EU?
There is no inat.
The EU?
Let me tell you, now we have much bigger process that is important, and this is this dialogue.
Okay.
Give us a chance. I know that there is a lot of mistrust in Pristina. I came here with the best possible message. We need to talk and find solutions for concrete problems. Give us a chance.
By the end of this year, will we have some
You have a constructive
ways?
negotiating team on the side of Pristina, people that need to get support. I'm sorry to see things happening in your parliament, in the streets of
Well,
Pristina.
they should be more transparent about what they're discussing.
What is transparent
be more
about negotiations? How come we don't come to your show and we negotiate in front of camera?
When do you think we can expect the results of these talks?
I hope really soon.
By the end of this year?
I hope by the end of this year we will close some of the important chapters and we will close some of the important topics that we have opened, and I'm sure that we'll have a chance to show to all people in Kosovo that our intentions are good, that proposals are good, that they're in line with European standards, that actually what Belgrade is doing is really helpful to the process of having normal lives in Kosovo.
Let's see
without abandoning our national position on the status. You should know that.
We will wait for those results. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeta, so much. Thank you.